Hey everyone, Brendan Snyder here. How are you? Thank you for joining me for a special review for prog pioneers Queensryche and their 16th studio album, Digital Noise Alliance. This thing came out on Friday, October 7th of 2022, and we're going to dive into it here in just a bit, including this very cool deluxe edition version of the album itself. But before we get started, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please click the button. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things help support my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by subscribing, you'll be able to stay up to date on all that's going on in the world of music, just like this, with a special review for the 16th studio album by Queensryche, Digital Noise Alliance. So jumping back a little bit here, the band itself formed back in 1980. Now, so that means that they've actually been together 42 long years, which is pretty impressive in and of itself. Their debut release was an EP. It was a self-titled release coming out in 1983. So next year it'll be interesting to see if the band does anything to celebrate its 40th anniversary. It would be really cool if during the tour for this album here, if they actually do a little breakdown in the middle of it and perform the EP in its entirety. We'll have to wait and see if they do anything. But really, Queensryche's heyday came during 1988 to 1994. And so the albums from that period there, Operation Mindcrime, 1988, one of the all-time classic concept albums, Empire in 1990, which was an even bigger commercial success for them, and then Promised Land in 1994, which is sort of the icing on the cake of that classic era. And then we jump ahead here. The first appearance by current guitarist Mike Stone came back in 2003, so almost 20 years ago, on the Tribe album. And incidentally, that album also featured returning founding guitarist Chris DeGarmo, albeit it was a very brief return. He only played on some of the tracks, but he did co-write, so that album had a very cool sort of classic feel to it as well. But we jump ahead again to 2012, where original vocalist Jeff Tate finally was out of the band, and at that point we've got current vocalist Todd LaTorre in, and he's now actually fronted the band for at this point a decade, which when I read that just recently, it kind of really surprised me that it had been a decade, because I certainly hadn't been thinking that I was missing Jeff Tate with the fantastic vocals by Todd LaTorre. So to find that out, or to be reminded of that, I should say, was kind of an interesting thing. And so the Todd LaTorre version of the band has now recorded 4 studio albums together, starting with their self-titled 2013 release, followed by Condition Human in 2015, The Verdict in 2019, leading us all the way to this Digital Noise Alliance in 2022, the one we want to talk about here. So, as I mentioned, 16th studio album, features 11 songs on here, plus 1 bonus track, so you are getting 12 total tracks on this. The 12th one being the bonus track is a cover of the Billy Idol classic, Rebel Yell. It's a pretty straightforward cover, although they do add some flourishes and flares to it that only Queensryche can do. And so the current lineup of the band, we've got Todd LaTorre on vocals, Michael Wilton on guitar, who is a founding member, Eddie Jackson on bass, who's also a founding member. Then we've got the returning Mike Stone on guitar, and Casey Grillo on drums, who was a touring member for the band, but this time making his first appearance on an album. He's formerly of the band Camelot. And so despite the band actually only having 2 founding members or original members left in the group here, I actually think that this album here is the closest to their classic era, particularly the Empire era of the band in 1990, both in songwriting and production. So we're not just talking about an either-or thing here. The album as a whole sounds like it, but also in terms of its songwriting structure too. And so the songs themselves have what I would call more of a hard rock vibe, and that's why I'm really leaning towards the idea that this album is of more that Empire era than, say, some of the other earlier era albums itself. And you know, the previous albums of the Todd LaTorre era were much more leaning towards that metal vibe, you know, and so they had that sound of the early era, but I also felt that they had a more modern sound to them as well, mixed with it, never quite fully coming back in tow to that era, whereas I feel this album here is doing it much more prominently than the past 3 albums with Todd LaTorre on it. And so there's quite a few tracks on here that I think could have easily appeared on Operation Mindcrime, Empire, or Promised Land, again leading to that idea that this is a real nice throwback kind of era album. And so while none of the songs on here I would say, you know, are as immediately catchy or familiar as anything from those classic era albums, they're still really, really good. And it's sort of like hearing, you know, when you hear this album, it's like having a good friend return kind of a thing. And I think most of you will agree when you pop this thing on, those opening notes of this thing here will really lead to that. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the standout tracks that are on this thing. Track number 1, In Extremis. This song was the first single from it. It was where a lot of people got their first taste of what this album could be. And I have to say, when I first heard this, it didn't immediately grab me. But since digging into the album and hearing the album as a whole, I actually now really like the song. Actually, it's probably the best track on the album. And it sets a really nice high bar for what's to come on the rest of this thing here. Track number 2, Chapters. This one here opens with a Michael Wilton bass line that's sort of just in classic fashion. When I first heard that, it immediately harkened me back to the Empire era. And then it really just kicks in, rocking from there, sounding like classic Queensryche throughout. Track number 3, Lost in Sorrow. This one here, the lead guitar on this particular track here has all the hallmarks of an Empire era song to it. It's you know, the song that stood out to me the most when I first heard this album here is you know, really stuck with me all the way through this thing, and it's kind of the thing that made me go back in, diving into this more and more. Then we got track 4, Sick Death. This one here is one of the heavier tracks that's on the album, having a feel of something more from like Rage for Order, Operation Mindcrime, something like that. And what's kind of interesting is after the first 3 tracks on here that are all real high, you know, pace numbers, we've got this one here that's like an even bigger pick-me-up after, you know, creating more of a peak on this album than what already has been delivered to us from those first 3 tracks. Kind of amazing that they can even do that at this point. And track 5 on here, Behind the Walls, a very epic sounding track, especially like Todd LaTorre's vocals on this one here. I think they really stand out to me, and the closing instrumental section of this, all making this song really, really fantastic in my opinion, you know. And that's just the first 5 tracks that are on this thing here, which I think really speaks to the volume and quality of music that's on this album here. But let's go ahead and dive into this thing. As I mentioned, this is a deluxe edition of it, coming in this little box set here. And I've got the hype sticker that I saved, and it says limited deluxe CD box set. And it includes a CD digipack poster, metal pin, and branded earplugs. And that's what made me pick this thing up. So let's go ahead and open this thing up. It is a clamshell style box. And so we just lift the top of this thing up and we get that, and you can see it's got some goodies right on the top. I'm going to sit this down for just a second so that I can show you. We've got the Queensryche metal pin, shiny, there you go, see a little bit better, but it's got the replica of the logo from the album on it. So I'll just hold that up real quick to let you register that. Just kind of cool. It doesn't just put in a traditional one, it actually does something special for this here. We get a poster with this, which the front side replicates the album cover, and that's cool. But what I like is we actually get a poster of the guys on the back. And this particular picture of the guys is not on the inside of the CD, so you're getting one more band photo that way. And then we get those Queensryche branded earplugs. And let me take it out of the plastic, a little hard to see there. So they come in one of these things, you know, you can take it to the concert, and you can put it on the keychain, you know, Queensryche Digital Noise Alliance thing. And when we open it, you can see they're pretty interesting, you know, what I would say high quality, you know, earplugs. They're not just those little ones you crush and stick in your ear kind of a thing. So, but when I heard branded earplugs, I actually thought it was going to say the name Queensryche on the earplugs. In fact, it just says it on the case itself. So inside you do get the digipack version of the album itself, and it has the same front cover and everything and back as the box. And we open it up here and we get some information there. And then you got the CD there in the middle of it. I'll pop the disc out, albeit not a photo or anything, but it has some artwork that's behind there. Pretty cool. And then we've got the booklet in this part, which I will go ahead and pull out. And the booklet's kind of done interesting. It's a little bit different in that the way it like accordions out from it here. So we've got the cover here, and then we've got all the lyrics on that part of it. And when I flip it around, we get the other band photos, sort of individual shots of the guys. But as I mentioned, getting that poster to go with it, pretty cool in my opinion. So bottom line, while I've been very impressed by the last 3 Queensryche albums, this one here, in my opinion, finally hits the nail on the head. This is the best of the Todd La Torre lineup, but not only that, I actually think, in my opinion, it is the best since 1997's Here and the Now Frontier tour, which was the last of the original lineup of the band. Again, high praise for this thing, considering there are only 2 original members left, which means the people they have brought in, I think, really have, evoked and enveloped the spirit of the band in order to continue it in a traditional fashion. And I think they're doing a phenomenal job with it. And that said, I originally had some reservations and was pretty worried with the fact that only being 2 original members, they had Mike Stone coming back in, and I wasn't a particular fan of Mike Stone's tenure in the band originally. And so I was a little bit worried about all of that stuff until hearing the album. But, in this case, classic band recording a classic sounding album worthy of their 40+ year legacy, in my opinion here. Who needs the original band when you've got a group like this doing such an amazing album the way that they have this late into their career? Pretty cool all around. Definitely recommend you guys check it out if you're Queensryche fans or just fans of progressive metal. And so there you go. That is the review for the brand new Queensryche Digital Noise Alliance album. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and if you did, please consider sharing this out on social media. Help spread the word that way, both for my channel, but also for Queensryche. I know they would appreciate it too. And certainly leave your thoughts. Let me know your comments, how you feel about the album and so forth, what's your favorite track, etc. All those good things, let me know. Have a good one, everyone. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.